Welcome to the television edition of Radio Friends, where we feature guests from all over central Missouri. This week, we'll find out more about the Mid-Missouri Transplant Group and Special Pet Blessing. All that and a lot more. So let's get started right now. Good to have you here, Ken.
Good to be here.
And you are a columnist that publishes in the Columbia Missourian.
Right.
Just sharing your thoughts about so many different things.
I'm also write a column for the Joplin Globe.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, I don't advertise it.
Okay, but I read you in the Missourian.
Yeah, you
and
should.
I like your columns.
Thank you.
You were angry last time.
I was because there's so many people in this state who are unvaccinated that they're causing the rest of us to wear
The masks.
these masks.
Yes.
Yeah.
But here we're here to talk about the outing
Outings
groups?
program. It's basically a short term for going out outings, and there are lots of places around Boone County where people can participate in the outings program. It's usually led by a person who has taken the first aid course and all that, and to protect against safety. The most recent, Tom Latta, the most recent outings leader, he was prospecting for a trail that he was going to lead, and he broke his leg.
Oh.
Yeah. So he's no longer the outings leader.
So what are they doing then?
What?
What now? So now he's no longer the leader.
Yeah, there are several outings group leaders, but no main person who was scheduled.
Okay.
And all that.
So now if people want to go on these outings, what do they need to do?
Well, they can sign up for information at the Osage Group site, which is sc.osage.group@gmail.com.
Now, do you need to be a member of the Sierra Club to go?
No,
so you can join these groups,
Right.
and go on these outings and see what's happening,
right.
but you don't have to be a member of the Sierra Club.
Nor do you have to break your leg.
Okay, you don't have to break your leg either. Not saying that you might not slip and fall, but you don't have to break your leg.
Right.
Is there a cost for these?
No,
Okay.
There's no cost. And they can get more information about that website or email site I addressed.
You gave an email address.
Yeah, email
You gave
address.
an email
Yeah.
address. So what are they going to do when they go on these outings?
Well, you're usually with a group, a small group, 5 or 10 people maybe, and the motto of the Sierra Club, the National Sierra Club, is explore, enjoy, protect, and the person leading the outings will talk about the wonders of nature, and hopefully the people on the outings will then want to protect what they have seen or where they have been.
Yeah. You mentioned that the wonders of nature, and all you have to do is go out in a wooded area or go out in a meadow or prairie and look around. Yesterday I was on one of the trails on our property, and I saw so many beautiful wildflowers.
Yeah.
And I go there a lot, but for some reason my senses were exploding yesterday with nature around me. And the delicate little wildflowers and the large wildflowers and the trees and what we call weeds, they're all beautiful.
Yeah. Well, and that with going with the group, just enhances your safety. You were probably by yourself.
I was by myself. Yeah.
So what happened if you would have fallen? Did you have your cell phone?
Yes, I had my cell
Okay,
phone.
good.
I'd had to crawl back, maybe crawl through a snake bed. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. But the thing is, get outdoors, and look at the wonders of nature. We have so much beauty if we just open our eyes to it. So many times we're rushing from one place to the next, and we don't see what is right in front of us.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why the Sierra Club, the National Sierra Club, has endorsed the outings program, because it does, in fact, when you go out in nature and you see those things, you want to protect those things.
Right.
Yeah.
You realize how blessed we are. And the other thing, besides seeing, just stand and listen to the sounds of nature. Listen to the sounds of the bird. Listen to the sounds of the breeze blowing through the trees. And as you go into fall, the breeze has a different sound in fall than it does in spring and it does in summer because of the texture of the leaves.
And not only that, you don't have to, in the fall and the winter and the spring, you don't have to stop and wipe your face.
Right, we're sweating.
Yeah.
I was sweating a lot. I was sweating a lot.
By the way, the Sierra Club outings program does not usually function in the summer because
Of the heat?
heat and humidity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. One other thing when you go out, also, you activate your nostrils there because there's wonderful, wonderful, sweet smells of the
Right.
outdoors.
Yeah, and you can see all sorts of things like birds and animals that
Right.
if you just stop for a second and maybe sit down and rest, all of a sudden all the animals and birds will come out.
Yeah. Okay. So if you want more information on this, what was that email address again?
sc.osage.group@gmail.com.
So that's an email address.
Right.
Okay. So just
And they would then send you information on when the next programs are going to be and where you need to show up to and all that.
okay. Okay. And if you didn't get this, if it sounded complicated, just Google the Sierra Club or the Osage Group Sierra Club,
Right.
and all that information will come up. You are here from the Most Policy Initiative. If people listening are not familiar, explain what Most Policy Initiative is.
Right. So Most Policy Initiative, we're a nonpartisan nonprofit group based in Jefferson City, and our goal is really to connect science and policy at the state and local levels in Missouri.
Right. Now, you have a couple of events that are coming up. Is it in October?
In October, that's correct.
What are they?
So we have our Local Science Engagement Network, or our LSEN. That's part of our Most Policy Initiative. And each month we have different themes for the programming that the LSEN puts on. And coming up in October, our theme is going to be climate change and extreme weather. So we're going to be hosting a roundtable on October 8th about urban heat islands. That's kind of our big event in October.
Urban Heat Island.
Urban heat islands.
And is that when you have all of these buildings, concrete buildings in the middle of a city, and very few patches of greenery or trees, and you've got that heat building up?
Absolutely. And so when we have lots of buildings, lots of cement, that's going to kind of absorb that heat and retain it, which is going to make even really hot days even hotter.
Right.
And so what we're going to be doing is hosting a roundtable with different experts, policymakers, and researchers. So there's a researcher at UMKC, Dr. Feng Peng Sun, and he's actually been going around and measuring temperatures throughout the city of Kansas City, and figuring out how those temperatures vary based on kind of the surrounding areas and how much green's around.
Well, people can do the experiment themselves. You're walking down a sidewalk, a concrete sidewalk, step off that sidewalk and onto the green grass and are under a tree, and the temperature immediately drops. There's a big difference, and it shows why we should be protecting our environment.
Yeah, I think that there's a few different kind of perspectives that we want to bring to this conversation. One of them is health. So people who are in these urban heat islands are potentially more likely to experience some of these heat-related illnesses. So exhaustion and problems that come along with that. And then, yes, also thinking about what this means for kind of urban planning,
Right.
the trees that we have that are lining our streets and things like that.
And I know you're nonpartisan, but when you talk about climate change, you've got climate change deniers out there. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so we, like you mentioned, we're extremely nonpartisan, so we're not trying to tell lawmakers what to do, but we are trying to bring science into the conversation. So the LSEN does this a couple different ways. We try to have local experts write what we call community science notes, and these are these short policy briefs that kind of highlight the science behind these different things.
Okay.
So rather than say, here's what you need to do to fix this, and if you don't do this specific thing, then you're failing, we say, here's the science in this issue, and here's kind of ways to engage.
Got it. Are most lawmakers, are they receptive?
What we found with our fellows program, kind of the other arm of MOST, is that people are receptive to this approach of kind of not telling them what to do, and we're really hoping that with the LSEN we can engage more with local lawmakers who are interested.
I really don't think there's any doubt that we have climate change. It's affecting everybody. If people want more information about MOST, what can they do?
So they can visit our website at mostpolicyinitiative.org. And also for any of these LSEN events coming up on Twitter, at MoScienceNet is going to be where you can see a lot of these new events coming up.
Thank you very much for coming by.
Thanks so much.
Continued success.
Thanks.
All right, now we're going to talk about something that is really very, very special. It's special to me, and that is pet blessings. And it's something that's been held every year except for last year for a long time. And my friend and my veterinarian from Horton's Animal Northeast, Michelle Marshall, is with us today. Good to have you here, Dr. Marshall.
Thank you, Paul.
And I say that sincerely. This woman has a very special way with animals. I have never met anybody that just like you that has such a unique touch with all the animals that we've brought in there.
Thank you.
Now, you are a member of the Broadway Christian Church, and the church has been doing a pet blessing for how many years?
This is our 10th year, so 10 out of the past 11 years.
Yes. If you are a pet lover and you care about your animals, you really want to go to this because it's a beautiful afternoon, and then you pay tribute to the animals who have already crossed the Rainbow Bridge. Are you doing that again this year?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, where you write their names on a little piece of paper, and then they're all remembered. So what happens with the pet blessing?
We invite people with or without pets. You don't necessarily have to have a pet to come. Everyone is welcome, and we hopefully will have it at our outdoor worship area this year. Last year we had to go inside because of weather, but
The year before last.
yes, sorry.
Year before last, yeah, we were inside. Last year you didn't have it because of the COVID.
That's true.
But you have a nice area outside on the lawn there under the trees at the Broadway Christian Church, and you just hold your pets on your lap or on your leash, and the minister comes by and dispenses a blessing on them.
That's right. Yes, and we have treats for people and pets, and everybody can stay and visit before and after the service, and so there's singing and the pet blessing and the memorial time, and then this year Julia Hall, who is the executive director of Second Chance, is going to come and give us a little update on how things are going with rescue organizations and Second Chance in particular, and maybe bring a few pets of theirs as well.
Okay. All right. So that sounds good. The date is
September 19th.
That's this coming Sunday, September the 19th at
3 p.m.
3 p.m. at Broadway Christian Church.
Correct.
And they do ask if you make sure you have your pets, your dogs on a leash, your cats on a leash or in a carrier. But as I said, it's really a beautiful, beautiful ceremony, and I get choked up every year going and thinking about it, especially when you pay tribute to your pets that are no longer with us. Michelle, as we go into fall, just briefly, how important is it to keep the pets, if you're giving them the flea and tick preventative, how important is it to keep them in through the fall?
It's very important, especially, as our weather seems to be staying warmer later in the year. We're definitely seeing fleas and ticks well into November, December. And so that would go with your heartworm preventative as well, because we see mosquitoes out as well.
Today I'd like to talk about something called the planning fallacy.
The planning fallacy.
Yes.
And what does that mean?
And I think this is something that you and probably most of your viewers have experienced sometime in their lives. And that is that when you're planning some sort of project, and I use that word kind of generally, but project, we tend to underestimate how much time it takes to finish it.
I think that's true, because no matter what you plan, it always takes a little bit longer, sometimes a lot longer than what you originally thought.
You have exactly described the planning fallacy.
Building a house. If you're planning to build a house and you've got all the plans there and the builder says, well, we'll have it all done by such and such, we're going to lay the foundation here, it never goes that way.
It never goes that way, even when we try to account for it, even
Yeah.
when we're aware of this, which is interesting. So we might discuss why this persists and what we might do about it. But, just to go to the house building, it's an interesting, I looked up in the Census Bureau has some data on this, and it says the average house took about 7 months to build. That's
Okay.
the average. So roughly speaking,
Yeah, that
half
sounds-
go longer than that.
That's right.
Right? And this doesn't include, getting the architectural plans, the building permits, and so forth. And yet, I think a lot of people count on something well under a year to get a house built. So anyway,
And then there's the cost overrun.
well, these run together. These go together, don't they? Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
It never costs what you originally think it's going to cost. Be prepared for a lot more.
My personal experience was with a house renovation, not a house building. But the chap said 4 months, and I think it was 8.
Yeah.
And certainly there were cost overruns there.
Right. Yeah,
You know.
I built our house 20 years ago or 21 years ago. And it started from the very beginning, the day they were going to break ground. we had a problem, an unforeseen problem. Had to put in a retaining wall before we
Oh.
could do anything else. And it was just one thing after another, and that cost kept escalating and escalating. And it was a real learning experience.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. And cost overruns, one of the great examples is the Sydney Opera House in Sydney, Australia.
Yeah.
The original budget was $7 million. The final expense was $102 million.
That is quite a cost overrun.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Anyway.
Okay, so why does this happen? Why do things always take longer than what we originally?
Well,
Is
I
it
think it's
because we want to be so positive about it?
I think you've put your finger on a very important explanation there, and that is a lot of people have something you might call the optimism bias.
Yeah.
And optimism can be really helpful, for if you're an entrepreneur or going through a difficult part of your life or whatever. Optimism is really important, but over-optimism can be a bit of a problem. But this optimism means that people tend to shade things like the house, like, you don't want to wait a year for your house. You're like, no, so you can kind of be a little hopeful. Maybe we can get it done in 8 months, 7 months, like the Census Bureau says. So I think that the optimism is part of it. For negative, I was thinking about negative kinds of projects. I'm using that word kind of loosely. Like, I was thinking about cleaning my gutters. And if I think, well, it's going to take 2 hours, like, I may never get around to it. I may get discouraged. But only an hour, I can do an hour.
Right.
So I might shade that way.
Right. So you're saying it's not going to take as long as you originally thought, so you can get started.
Yeah.
And then once you get into it, you realize, I was wrong. This is going to take long. This is going to take longer than 2 hours. But at least they started it.
No, that's right. And, part of it is trying to deceive yourself in a way to get up on the roof, in this case, to
and
clean out the gutters.
that's human nature.
It is. It is. So again, this optimism is generally a good thing, but we need to be aware that we may be underestimating these times. I think in organizations, like if we were to start some sort of new program here at the School of Journalism, right? And we'd say, we'd like this up and running next fall, for example. There may be pressures within the organization to get the project done quickly. So you might, even knowing that maybe a little optimistic, you might pare the estimated time down just to please the bosses or to get the proposal approved or something like that. Mm-hmm. So there are all kinds of forces at work here.
Okay, so as a whole, is this good or bad?
Well, I think as a whole, it's kind of net bad, but not really bad. I mean, part of it is that most of us are aware of this, and so when it happens, it's not a huge surprise. We were kind of hoping the
That it
house would
wouldn't
take
happen?
7 months, but
Yeah.
we're not surprised it's going to take 8 or 9 months.
Now,
So-
I got to tell you, there's a couple of times that I've started some do-it-yourself projects, and I was actually able to finish it in less time than I thought.
Well,
so it does happen from time to time.
Well, that's good, but maybe if I don't know, but maybe if you weren't enjoying the work, you wanted it done quickly. And so you worked really hard at it, but congratulations on that. That is kind of the exception, not the rule, you know. So a couple of ideas about how to deal with this. So there's some really interesting research that says if you ask third parties to estimate completion times, they actually tend to overestimate them. So if I were to have said to you, Paul, like, how long do you think my house renovation is going to take? I'm open for 4 months. You might say, I think it'd be 10 or 11 months, right? Now that it turns out it's about 8 months, right? But if I could take this, kind of third party view and my own somewhat optimistic view and maybe average them,
Yeah, then
I
you come
might
out
get
close,
it,
you come
So
out close
I
to
think
normal.
I think it pays to go get a third party, just like, I don't know, buy them a beer, a cup of coffee, something, and say, what do you think of this project? How long is this project going to take? Again, recognizing that third parties tend to overestimate these times.
Now, is this in the book, The Foolish Corner?
This is in the book, yes, my book, The Foolish Corner, which is available on Amazon.
John, we're out of time. It was an interesting conversation. If you want to sign up for John's newsletter, no strings attached to it, right?
No strings. It's free. You can unsubscribe if for some reason you don't like it. It comes out just once a month, too. It won't clog your inbox.
I want to introduce you, first of all, to Joe Weston. Joe is with Columbia South Rotary Club, Rotary for Life.
Morning.
And you've been a semi-regular on here. You brought along someone special today also.
We're very grateful to you for embracing the whole notion of organ donation and being so generous with your time with us. We started a program called Rotary for Life in our club. We being the late Tom Thomas, our charter president.
Yeah.
And I helped him. Tom was the beneficiary of a heart transplant in 2010. He had only a few months to live because of his advancing heart disease. And each recipient is given the opportunity to thank the donor family, anonymously, of course. Tom thought long and hard about how to address a letter to these people who were certainly still grieving. He did, and didn't hear back, which apparently occurs at least half the time. But over time, he wanted to make known in some way his appreciation for the gift of the heart he got. So in 2016, 6 years after he got it, we started talking about developing this educational awareness program, which is hard to do one person at a time.
Right.
So we decided to go through our Rotary Club. We were both in the same club, and eventually enlisted cooperation and participation from the other clubs in town, and started presenting regular programs to our members. And then we started doing it through in our Rotary district. Now we want to go further. Unfortunately, Tom died in 2017.
But
not
he
because
lived,
of the heart.
Right.
Pardon?
He lived, what, 7 years?
He lived 7 years and had 7 terrific years of good quality life for himself, his wife Nancy, and maybe more important, for his grandchildren.
Right.
One of whom is entering Mizzou this fall.
Okay.
So today, and Tom got his heart through the Midwest Transplant Network in Kansas City, and today Lori Clark, who has for a number of years been in charge of their Columbia presence and operation, is with us.
Hi.
Hi.
Now, so, Lori, we wanted to talk with you about who can make donations of their organs, because it is giving life. If you lose your life, obviously you have no use for anything that's in there. Why not give it? Why not donate it to somebody else who can go on living, and a part of you then continues living?
Absolutely. And we try to make that really, really easy for our community. So the best way to sign up to be a donor is through the Department of Motor Vehicles, and we also have a website for anybody and it's really mobile phone friendly.
Yeah.
You can go to sharelifemidwest.com and sign up easily that way. You don't have to have a driver's license to sign up. And the other beautiful thing about it is it's your decision. It's your legal decision. So you are an authorized donor if you sign up to be in the registry.
Let's touch on that also, though. Even though you make that decision, you have it on your driver's license. Can your family override that if you are unconscious and close to death?
No.
They cannot.
It's already authorized.
So you have authorized it yourself.
Correct.
Are there any restrictions about donations?
Can you be more specific?
Well, can anyone, everybody can sign up for organ donation?
We do encourage that. There are certain medical conditions that might rule out a particular organ, but not all of them.
Yeah.
Somebody might have had breast cancer last year and might be walking around thinking, I can't be an organ donor ever again, and that's not true.
That is not true.
Correct. So we encourage all folks to sign up to be a donor. They may not be able to be a donor today, but their
Well,
medical
hopefully-
condition can
yeah.
change and improve over time. And so we always evaluate folks for donation. The best time to evaluate them for eligibility is when they pass away.
This is somewhat of a touchy subject. If you're on hospice and you want to die at home and you are close to death and the family knows that you want to be an organ donor, can you still go ahead and fulfill your wish and die at home and be an organ donor? Or do you have to be in a hospital?
You know what? I think it depends. You're most likely, if you're home, to be eligible to donate tissue gifts, which are also very important. Those would be our musculoskeletal gifts, our dermis, which goes to our burn victims, or breast reconstruction, going back to breast cancer survivors. So the folks that corneas is another opportunity for folks that pass away at home. Organ donation is exclusive typically to those that are passing away in the hospital.
Okay, so the main organs in your body, you must die in a hospital for that to happen, because the organs have to be harvested rather quickly, don't they, after death?
They do.
Is there anything else? We've got about a minute left. Anything else that you want to get across to the audience?
Well, Joe and I, every year, last year kind of fell through because of the pandemic, but we partner with the University of Missouri and the American Red Cross to have a presence at the annual fall homecoming blood drive.
Okay.
So this year, that is September 27th through the 30th, every day at the Hearn Center from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. The homecoming theme is A Reason to Roar, and they are... Their goal is 2,200 pints of blood for the entire week. So we will be there with Joe's Rotary partners and some other volunteers, just getting the right information out to the community about organ donation, how important it is to our community. We have 1,700 Missourians waiting for an organ transplant right now, and we have the ability to sign folks up at the registry, at
Okay.
the blood drive if they would
You
like.
got it. All right. So the blood drive is from when to when?
September 27th through the 30th.
Location?
From 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Hearn Center.
All right. Thank you so much for coming by, Lori and Joe. Thank
Students
you.
are a very receptive audience. by the
All
way.
right. Well,
Yes.
our door is always open to you here. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. For more information on organ transplant or the Columbia South Rotary Club website, real quick, they can go to
ShareLifeMidwest.com.
ColumbiaSouthRotary.org.
ColumbiaSouthRotary.org
Yep, ShareLifeMidwest.com.
or
That's the main one.
ShareLifeMidwest.com. Okay, you got two of them to choose from. We're out of time for today. I'd love to hear from you. Something you'd like to hear us see. Pepper P, Missouri.edu. Bye-bye.